trust everyone is doing well. So thank you so much for that very brief introduction, Shaifa. I really appreciate it. So I think I would just get started. But before we get into the meat of the conversation, I would also like to get a sense of who we have in the room. So can can I have like two volunteers, a guy and a girl, or lady, to just introduce themselves, especially with regards to their career prospect or like with regards to their career interest. Any volunteers?
Yes, sir.
Hi, well, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, sir. Good morning, sir.
Okay, go ahead. Good
My name
morning.
is Awal Adam.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Awal Adam. I am the founder of Skill at this company. I am from Crusted. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Awal. Can we have a lady please introduce herself? Can you guys hear me very well? Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Can we have Elizabeth? Elizabeth, do you want to unmute your mic?
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yeah, my name is Elizabeth Area Favor, and I'm a product designer.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, awesome. I'm just gonna share my screen now, and hopefully that would get us started. So very warm welcome to everybody. Just give me a second. I need to hide this. Okay. Please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see you now.
Awesome. So
Yes, sir. We are here.
awesome. So like Shafa had mentioned, I'm a management
Yes, sir.
consultant. I work with Mastercard West Africa, and I basically also have a lot of things I do around people development, career coaching sessions through the NGO I founded about like 5 years ago. It's called the Student Personal Development Hub. So I'm not very new to this space. I've been working around people's CVs for both professionals, entry level, and even like mid-level career professionals as well. So I think like to a very large extent, I have, you know, um, I've done this a lot many times to know like what are the intricacies around, designing or creating a compelling CV, right? And that's what I want to share with you today. And I hope that this is going to be valuable for you as you go forward with your career. So the things we're going to be looking at, first of all, I was going to be introduction and objective, which is largely what we've done. We're then going to take a step at like what is a CV and how does it differentiate from what we call the resume. Like, what are some interesting facts about the CV? And then we're going to dive deep into the anatomy of a winning CV, basically speaking about what are the various components and elements of a CV and how can leverage these elements to create something compelling that would land you a role and offer with any of your dream organization. Um, the next thing we're going to look at as well is tips to creating a winning CV, what a cover letter is or what a cover email is, elements of a cover letter, tips to creating a winning cover letter, and then I'm going to open the floors for any questions. Mind you, questions come at the end of it, but please do not hesitate to interject or stop me if there's anything I'm saying or speaking about that is not very clear to you, because I feel like that's why we're here. So you can intermittently, like chime in if there's anything I've mentioned that's not very clear to you. Please do not hesitate to stop me. All right, so we're just going to move deep into that. I was going to go about the introduction, but I think Shifa had done that largely. So just going to speak about my objective for you today. It's basically to equip you to create a compelling CV and cover letter for yourself and to get you hired, right? That's the whole essence of this conversation and why Net Factory has created this like webinar series for you. And also to get you fired up for your next opportunity, um, regardless of whatever it might be. So we're taking a deep dive now into what a CV is and how does it differ from a resume, right? Now, a CV is basically it's a Latin term that means curriculum vitae, and what it translates to is your course of life. And this basically speaks to a summary of your work history, your academic qualifications, your soft and hard skills, and other achievements that are relevant to the job that you're applying for. Now, take note that the word relevant was largely highlighted. And the reason why I say this is many times people tend to write their CVs with experiences just to fill it up. And then we realize that oftentimes when people go through their CVs, they are not relevant to the roles they are applying for. Typical case in point is you're a product designer and you're putting in your experience that you worked as, say, maybe a receptionist. At this point, it might not be exactly very relevant to the role that you're applying for. Now, the very critical thing that is also highlighted here is that your CV is, curated in reverse chronological order. What does this mean? This means putting your most recent experiences above the least recent. So you need to arrange your CV. So this is a very critical like element I would also speak about like going forward. But this is my own way of defining what a CV is that takes into account all the various components of what you should consider. So your CV comprises of your work history. In fact, everything you've done, a CV comprises of everything you've done that are relevant to the job you're applying for or application or opportunity you're applying for that is also created in a reverse chronological order. How does this differ from a resume? Now you see people say, oh, a CV, a resume, and largely the difference is usually around the nomenclature and not about the content of what it is. So as you see on the slide, we see that a US resume and a UK employment CV are essentially the same document. It's just a thing of nomenclature. But some people would then tell you that, oh, a CV is more detailed, has more pages than like a resume does, which is also like kind of like arguable, but I feel like largely the difference comes in terms of the nomenclature. Where we particularly begin to see some like elements of differences is when we speak about an academic CV. An academic CV then is a CV that is not used largely for employment in a corporate environment. It is largely used when you're applying to become a professor at a university or to become a research assistant at the university or a higher institution. That's when like we then speak about your academic CV, which is now, has some form of like nuances that are very different in terms of how like deep you have to go for an academic CV. You need to summarize a lot of other things that you probably would not even have in a professional CV when you're looking for a job. And as you have you on the slide, you see that it's an in-depth description of your academic and professional credentials, experience, and accomplishment. It doesn't have a required maximum length. So one major difference is that an academic CV does not have a maximum length. But ideally, when you speak about the CV or resume, professionally, your CV should be within 1 to 1.5 except you have a lot of experiences. That is when your CV should be getting to like 2 pages. But ideally, your CV should be at most 1 pager to like a page and a half. For entry level, mid-level career professionals, that's usually the length I would expect your CV to be. Because first of all, not a lot of recruiters have a lot of time to go over all of the details. And you see the reason why, this is usually the expectation as we move forward. As you can see on the right side of the screen where we also have some differences in terms of what a CV, how does a CV differ from a resume. So like I said, largely it is nomenclature by geographical location, right? We see here about CV being 1 to 2 pages long, a resume between like 1 page long and all of that. So I hope this gives you a sense of understanding of these differences. And I feel like this is not the bone of contention. We're going to go into the anatomy of what a CV is. And I think that that's what is going to drive the most value for you. Now, here is a visual example of how an academic CV would look like. It could be more than this. An academic CV can be as high as like 3 to 4 pages, depending on what you have on your CV. So the essence of this particular slide or the so what of this slide is I want to speak to like why you actually need a CV, because some people are wondering, okay, like can't I get a job without this CV, or like why do I even need to be particular about having a good CV? Now, what is the essence of having a good CV? Is that your CV is a powerful document that speaks for you in your absence. You don't have the luxury to defend yourself in a room when you're being discussed, for example, for a job opportunity. It's your CV that is going to go on your behalf, and then it has to be good because that's the only source of credibility you have. It speaks for you in your absence. Another like point I have here is that it is the first impression and prospective employer has about you. Your CV is like your um ideally the first image a person have about you. So if your CV, for example, is very disorganized, it already communicates to the kind of individual that you are. You probably don't pay attention to details and things like that. Now, the third thing I put here is that it can make or break your career. And this is highlighted in red because it can be arguable. Now, what do I mean by this? What is stopping you, aside from maybe your network or your referrals, another thing that might stop you from getting the opportunity that is ideal for you to move to the next level of a career might be a very bad CV. That CV might just be the weapon fashioned against your success. So it is very critical that your CV is compelling and ready enough to take you to the next level of your career, and which can also lead to better opportunities as you move forward. Your CV is also a multi-purpose document that comes in handy as you journey through a successful career. So what I mean by multi-purpose is beyond applying for jobs, some applications or opportunities you might see, like some fellowships and some like other various opportunities that can also contribute to your success as a career person, or whoever is looking for a job. It can be leveraged for it. There are a lot of fellowship that would demand you to send in your CV. So kind of like maybe the conferences you want to attend that might require you to submit your CV. So that's why it's a multi-purpose document. And then finally, it's an opportunity to document your life accomplishment as you move forward in your career. Please confirm that you can hear me. Do you have any questions so far?
We can hear you.
Awesome.
I can hear you, sir.
All right. Do we have any questions from anybody about what I've just spoken about so far? Because I really want this to be engaging as much as possible. I don't just want to read out things to you.
I have a question. Could I go ahead?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I got my friend to make a CV for me some weeks ago, and with this information now, that's your latest achievement, or yeah, the least, I mean the most latest to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know how to put it. I did that, and he said the information was too much, like a lot of unnecessary information. So if a CV is supposed to be a documentation of everything that I have done, possibly, so why am I hearing, like, why is it telling me the informations are too much, are unnecessary? And I actually
Mm-hmm.
had 2 pages, and I'm not even experienced in anything, like not so much, but I had a 2 page CV.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt really bad, kind of mocked at that point where it was like
Uh,
all this information
uh,
unnecessary.
yeah, you don't have to feel bad. So there's something I always advise people to do, right? I get that your CV is supposed to be like a documentation of your life. There's something that I call the master CV. Now, this master CV is like it's for you. It's not for your employer. It's just for you. Where so that in a case where you have to tweak your CV to fit into a specific job application you're making, you don't have to like rack your brains again about developing an entire CV content for that application. You could have a master CV that details everything you have done, and then from your master CV you can then create various CVs that suits um, specific job application that you're making. So coming back to the point of relevance, whatever you're putting on your CV for a job has to be relevant to that job. If it's not relevant, it's a total waste of time. And I feel like it's just a way to fill up the CV and just to fill in space. So as much as it's a document that speaks about it, documented everything you've done, it also has to be tailored to the job or be relevant to the job that you're applying. So my advice would be have a master CV, which can also inform the subsequent CVs that you create to suit specific job applications that you're making. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. So let's
Yeah,
move forward. Okay, yeah,
yeah, can
please
I
go
ask,
ahead.
Yeah, most of the jobs application that we fill online, they do
Mhm.
ask for CV and also they ask for resume. So how do you balance that? They ask for CV at the same time and also the resume. How do you balance that?
It's very strange to hear that because ideally, is it that they ask you to upload your CV separately from another question that asks you to upload your resume, or they say upload your CV or resume?
Okay, for example, there are some jobs application, maybe let's just say a company wants to employ. In
Hmm.
the first instance, they tell you upload your CV. Then by the time you get to the end of the application, they can also tell you upload your resume on the
Okay.
same job application.
Okay. So that's very strange for me to hear, but I think that in a situation like that, so like people would arguably say that your resume is a shorter version of what your CV should look like. But me, I just think that the difference is largely around nomenclature because your resume, um, so for example, like we have here that in the UK, for example, what people typically would say is a CV, which is about 1 to 2 pages long. But in the US or in Canada, for example, normally like a resume is ideally supposed to be like one pager, more modern design than what a CV ideally will look like. But these are just various nuances that that can differ by virtue of geographical location or by employer. So um, if that is a situation where they're asking for both your CV and your resume, if I was the one, I would upload both documents because for me, I think that it is the same thing. And then maybe like something you can do to add on to that would be to send an email, a clarification email as to like what exactly they might be speaking to. They might have a specific requirement that, they may have mentioned during the course of the application that you may have missed. So sending out maybe like a clarification email might just be a way for you to like clear the air with regards to that. I don't know if that is helpful.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, so let's move quickly. Some interesting facts about a CV. Now, there are a lot of interesting facts about CVs that we have. I'm just gonna just highlight a few. Like one of it is that ideally when you apply for a job, on an average, you're competing with about over 250 people on an average. And that is the reason why your CV has to be compelling enough to stand that level of competition. We also see that recruiters spend about 5 to 7 seconds on average going over each CV that they receive. And this is why very first impression is key. By impression, we're speaking about the look and feel of the CV, um, the grammar and spelling check, that everything just checks out. And the recruiter is not basically just stressed by seeing your CV, right? Then we also have that 76% of resumes are rejected due to an unprofessional email address, part of which we're going to go in as we go forward in this class. And then finally, what I want to also to mention is that 61% of recruiters will discard a resume if it has mistakes. Applicants with spelling problem will be disqualified by 43% of hiring supervisors. This is why you need to pay critical attention to detail when creating your CV for yourself. Now, let's go into the anatomy of a winning CV. By anatomy, I mean, what are the various elements, that makes up a compelling CV? What are the things that you should look towards, in writing a compelling CV for yourself, right? So the first thing that we're going to be looking at here is what to include on a CV. As you can see on the right side, I have an image that's just uh, your someone is writing on my screen. So just give me a second to uh, uh, just a second. Okay. I'm unable to fix this, but please, could you stop writing on the screen?
Okay, hi Praise. You can fix it
Hi.
actually, but you have to stop sharing your screen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so start sharing it again.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me now? Sorry, I had an internet issue. But am I back?
Yes, you're back. Okay, now
Oh,
on the screen where you see the option of do more at the top, you know when you share your screen.
yeah.
Yes, click on that and just look for annotation and turn it off.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, can you, yes, disable it. Okay, fine. I got that. Thank you so much. So, just for the sake of bandwidth, I'm going to turn off my video, like while I rush through this. Not rush technically, but go through the presentation with you. Okay, so what are the elements or the anatomy of a winning CV? So the first thing that we have ideally would be your full name, your contact information, your professional title, your resume summary or resume objective for experienced professionals, research interest if it's an academic CV. We look at education, publications for academic CVs, teaching or lecturing experience for academic CVs, work experience, conferences and courses, skills, certificate, languages, grants, or fellowships, right? So now we're going to go into the different elements or segments of this CV. Now let's look at personal information. What are the do's and don'ts of the personal information? So what I do is I tell you what it is and I give you a visual representation of what I'm talking about so that once you're creating your CV, you would ideally have a picture of what is expected of you to do, right? What are the do's or don'ts? Now, for your name should be in bold and capitalized. Your first name, middle name, and your last name. Some people don't know the difference between your first name or the last name. So your first name is the very first name your parents gave to you, and your last name is your surname. Your middle name can then maybe be like your other names that your family gave to you. But then just keep it very simple if you want to just have your first name and your last name on your CV. As you can see beneath the screen, we have a visual representation of what I'm speaking about. Your first name is, so the example we have here is Chigozirim, and then the middle name is Justice, and then the surname or the last name is Nwahia. Now, this is ideally how it should be. The coloration is not like a one size fit all. You can play around it, but with colors that are very, professional, like blue, very dark blue. Don't use red, that would be too sharp. Just pick colors that are appealing to the eyes. In terms of your address, now keep it simple. You don't have to have the entirety of your address on your CV for the sole purpose of security, and also because it's not really relevant now. What I think you should just have on your CV should be the city that you're in and the country, right? Your recruiter doesn't necessarily have to have the full details of your address, also to help avoid biases, because some recruiters might just be very biased and say, this person is living far from the office and might be stressed to come into work. You don't want them to already decide for you if your distance is far or not. So it's better to just keep it very simple. Your city and the states that you're in. Also very important, if the job you're applying for is in Lagos, don't put your address as maybe as Calabar, because ideally the recruiter might not, they might not consider reviewing your CV. If you have an intention to relocate, it's better to put the location of where the job is than to just assume that, like putting Calabar will be fine. So it should be, ideally in the city where the job is located, that you should include on your CV. Now, your phone number. Best practice is to include your country code. Now, this is because your CV, for this, some of you in the tech space, you're a product designer, you might want to apply for jobs outside Nigeria. You don't want a situation where the recruiter has to now go and start figuring out what the country code of Nigeria is to place a call across to you. So best bet is to just put your country code alongside your phone number, and the country code for Nigeria is +234, and then your phone number, the rest of it. A very clear example is what we see here on this CV. We have phone +23480. That's how to ideally put your phone number on your CV. Now, email. You saw in the interesting fact about how 76% of recruiters discard an email for a CV because of an unprofessional email address. Do not use an unprofessional email address for your CV. Gmail is free. You can create as many emails as you can. So as much as you can, put your name on your CV. If your name, because of how porous Gmail is, there might be people who have already used that name. You can look for a way to move around it. You can use a dot. You can use what's it called now? Hyphen, to just make your email unique. But then you shouldn't have things like sexybabe345. You should not have like hotboy@gmail.com. Please, your CV should be professional if you're looking for a job. Now, there's something we also put on your CV, which is your LinkedIn URL, right? If you're on LinkedIn and you have a very updated profile, it's also critical to put your LinkedIn on your CV, because the recruiter might want to look at how you've presented yourself on your LinkedIn. If like maybe they can use that to form an opinion about a prospective hire, right? They want to see maybe the people they are following. But so it's also very important to. It's not mandatory, but if you have it, it's okay to have it on your CV. And how do you put it? It's either you put it the entire link on it. This is not my go-to ideally. What I would just do is to type out LinkedIn URL and hyperlink it with the link to my profile on LinkedIn. I wish there's a way I can show you how to do that, but I feel like if you Google how to hyperlink a text on Microsoft Word, you should be able to see how to hyperlink your LinkedIn profile to your CV. And then finally, don't include details like your marital status, age, picture, LGA, gender, to avoid biases. Except you're applying for a job in a bank, and some of these things are, as in, it was clearly stated in the application process that you need to include all of these details. You do not have to have these details on your CV, because what this information does is to create some biases, in terms of the recruitment and entire effort. So that's pretty much about what personal information is about, and that covers full name and contact information. Now let's move forward to the next important detail or element of your CV. Okay. We have education qualification. So you see what I do? I speak about it and I show you a visual representation of what it is. Education qualification now. Please confirm that you can hear me before I move forward.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right.
We can hear you, sir.
Awesome. So when we speak about your education qualification, what we're talking about. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that insight. Thank you. So what you can do is, what is the best practice in putting in your education qualification? It should be the name of your school, the location of your school, year of start to end of your degree program. What degree did you obtain from that education exercise that you embarked on? What is your course of study? These things that are in black are ideally very critical because these are the most important information. Now, the ones on red are optional. Optional, except they are very interesting to add on your CV. So, for example, if you had a first class, it's good to shine that on your CV because it really makes you stand out. But let's say you had a 2-2 in your CV. You don't want them to just judge you based off your academic um, degree just yet. So you don't have to include that on your CV, and that's why it's on red. If your CGPA is very high, maybe you're a very bright student, you want to include it in your CV because see, your CV is you selling yourself to a prospective employer. So anything that makes you stand out, anything that makes you shine, it is important to have it on your CV. But if your CGPA is not so high, you don't have to include it in your CV because it will only just make them form an opinion about you even before they get to see other things that you can do. So let it be by virtue of, you know, should I say, be discerning in terms of what you want to add and what you want to remove. But for the things in black text, these are very critical. And you can see an example of that just right below that point. Now we have Quantic School of, so this is actually my CV. So if you see what I was talking about in the previous slide about hyperlinking your LinkedIn profile, instead of putting the entire link just like that on your CV, you can just type LinkedIn profile URL and hyperlink it, attach the link to that text so that once they click on the link, it takes them to your LinkedIn profile directly. Now, back to education. You see here that we have the name of the school, Quantic School of Business and Technology. What is the location of the school is in Washington, D.C., USA. The year of start, which is 2022 to 2023. The degree that you're pursuing or you have pursued, an MBA in leadership and management. Course of study is included there. So the degree is an MBA, the course of study is leadership and management. Now, the other things that are in red, which are things you can add or remove. So if you have like a scholarship for that program, you want to shine that there because they need to see that you are, you're doing all of this amazing stuff. So anything that makes you look good is what you want to put on your CV. If it doesn't make you look good, do not include it. So if your CGPA is high, if you got a scholarship, if you had like an interesting academic project that is relevant to the job, so like you're applying for the role of a product designer, for example, and maybe in your like undergrad, you did a thesis around maybe like design like elements or something like that. It is relevant to the job, so you want to shine that as well on your CV. You do not need to include. So this is people argue about this a lot, and I always want to tell them, see, you do not need to include your primary and secondary education if you already have a higher education qualification, because ideally, before you even be qualified to get a higher education, you must have passed your WAEC or whatever requirement that you need to get into higher education. So in my opinion, I think like what is necessary, like what exactly are employers hiring you for? They're not hiring you because of your WAEC. They are mostly going to hire you because of the higher education that you've obtained, right? So I do not see the importance of including your WAEC and your primary school on your CV. I feel like it's just a way to fill up space. Just include your higher education, and I feel like that is sufficient enough, except you do not have a higher education. That is only when I would recommend you including your secondary school education qualification, So that is it about that. So we have a pool. It says, let's see if is this from your end? Okay, I'm just going to continue. All right. I hope this is clear. I also have it that it can be at the top of your CV or the end of your CV. And this is mostly driven by preference or experience. So it might be your preference to start your CV with your education. Some people might want to start with something else like a professional summary, but then this is largely based on being an experienced person or not. If you're an entry-level applicant, ideally you should start with your CV because at this point you haven't decided what you want to do or like you haven't had so much experience to even have a professional summary, except you don't want to be very generic with it. But overall, entry level advice to start with your education. But if you're like an experienced professional, you might want to lead with your work experience or you might want to lead with a professional summary. Now, that brings me to the next element on your CV, a professional summary. What is a professional summary? A professional summary just basically summarizes your career journey so far. It can also be a way that you can speak to your career prospect or your career aspirations, in future tenses to your employer. It is mostly relevant when you have significant work experience, but some people who do not have significant work experience still include a professional summary, but they speak to it in a futuristic, way, such that they say, and you will see an example of that as we move forward. Some people without work experience, like I said here, still included, but it is mostly from a futuristic perspective of what they want their career trajectory to look like. And then finally, it should contain a maximum of 3 sentences briefly highlighting what has been done, your value proposition to your prospective employer, and expectations from your prospective employer. Now, a very good example of this is, now, this is somebody who has, significant work experience, and here is their professional summary. An experienced banking operations and relationship manager with 10 plus years of managing medium and large-scale core banking operations and relationships with customers and HNI clients, committed to excellence, customer satisfaction, process optimization, and operational transformation to deliver results for customers and clients. Now, this is somebody who has significant work experience. Now, for someone who does not have significant work experience, I also want to include this on their CV. We have an example here for a customer service representative, and it says a customer service representative with 5 years of experience solving. So this is also for experienced people. Okay, I'm just going to give you a very brief example of how it's going to look like for someone who does not have professional experience. So you could say something like, a product design and technical, or like a product design enthusiast with significant academic and like professional experience, so maybe like with professional and technical knowledge expertise through courses and trainings, looking to join an organization where my skills will be utilized for impactful designs, for example. That could just be you speaking about what you want to do long term, right? So that's also a way you can couch a professional summary for yourself if you do not have significant work experience. I'm going to move faster now because we're running. So now this is the meat of your CV, which is the professional or work experience. But just before I go into this, do you have any questions about the 2 segments I've just discussed, or like the 3 segments I just discussed now?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, yes, let's have it.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, good afternoon.
My question goes to the education qualification.
Okay.
Okay, if I have let me assume I have an experience for like 2 or 3 years working experience,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to write a CV. I want to update my CV. Before,
Okay.
I guess my CV, when I started, I guess after my professional summary, I have my working experience. So,
Mm-hmm.
but you said as an entry level experience, like someone that is not professional, that I should start with education qualification. Now, I want to ask, because I have an experience, so if I'm updating the CV now, I should start with my education qualification, not my professional summary again.
You just said you have experience, right? So if you have experience, then you can of course lead with your professional summary. Your education can come at the end. So like I said, that it can be at the top of, or the end of your CV, mostly driven by your preference or your experience. So if you prefer to have it on top, regardless of your work experience, that is great. But if based off your work experience, you want to show like a summary of what you've done, and you want to lead with your professional summary, that is also very acceptable. Your education can come in at a later stage after your work experience. It's really just dependent on your preference, really.
Okay. Thank you
Yes,
so
sir.
much. Thanks.
Awesome.
Sir, I have a question, please.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. My question is, okay, for example, I want to use myself for example. I'm a graduate of accounting.
Okay.
I don't have any I don't know of I don't have any prior knowledge about computer and all of that. So last year I put in for product design class, and I've graduated. I have some practicals that I've done, like projects, personal projects, but I've not worked in a office settings. I've been working all my years of experience. I've been working as a creative assistant creative director of fashion houses and all of that. So me doing my CV now, does it mean I have to, since you said something about experience, adding experience to, adding relative experience to the CV. So if I'm to write my CV now, so does that mean I'm not going to write anything relating to like what I've done before in my CV?
What you have done before, like, is it in terms of your background in accounting?
Yes, or where I've worked before.
Okay. So, like I said, if the role that you're applying for is the role of a product designer, your experience as a creative director, it is very relevant to, your aspirations as a product designer, because product design involves a lot of creativity, right? Definitely you should highlight that experience on your CV. You can decide to take, because you don't have any like form of formal education with regards to design. Your education can come in at a later stage on your CV, where you've highlighted now your professional experience of what you've done, your work experience, certifications you've done. Your education at this point is not relevant, right? So it can come towards the tail end of your CV, because at this point, what the recruiter would have been, like intimated with will be what you've done in terms of your like your creative work, the like kind of certifications you've acquired over time, and a summary of what you've done professionally. That would then be like what would be the major chunk of your CV. Your education in accounting at this point is not relevant to the job to your application for a product designer. What is relevant is your experience. So your education at this point might not be critical for you to put it in the top of your CV, because it's not the most relevant element of your CV at this point. I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay. So I think I get what you're trying to say.
Yeah, so for your case, you can lead with a professional summary if you've been doing creative design. You can say something like an experienced creative design, an experienced creative design professional with maybe like 2 to 3 years work experience in XYZ industries, and you've done XYZ, and just create a summary for yourself. The next thing you can do is to lead with your work experience, showing that, um, like like passion and interest in the creative space, which is what we want to see of a product designer. I would typically imagine, right? And then maybe the next thing can be certifications and trainings, which will also like highlight some of the things you've done in product design and stuff like that before then your education. Because at this point, your education in accounting is not relevant to the job that you're applying for. But it's also important that you show your employer that you have a formal education. Do you understand?
Yes, sir. Thank
Awesome.
you very much, sir. Thank you.
Awesome. So then I hope these questions have also like shed light into what we've been talking about so far. So let's like dive right into the meat of.
I have a question.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. If I'm applying for a job in Abuja and let's say I'm in Delta State, most times I just remove address. I don't put my address at all. Is it okay?
Do you have a location in Abuja that you can stay when you get the job?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's better to just put Abuja, Nigeria, because you don't want to, like a recruiter wondering where you're located. Location is very important because it helps the recruiter to know, oh, this person is in the city or is not in the city, and it can also help them make a decision. It is better to just include Abuja, Nigeria, because the whole idea is, would you be able to resume at this job when they give it to you? If you have a location in Abuja to stay, then the answer is yes. So there's no point putting Delta. You can just put Abuja, Nigeria, so that when the employer invites you to come over for the, or maybe gives you the job, maybe let's say that the entire process of recruitment is like virtually, and then you're not giving the job, then they don't need to worry about maybe like relocating you or something like that, which might be a concern for them. So it's always better to just give them a location of where you're currently located than to not put any form of location at all on your CV.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. So now, this part of your CV is the most critical part. It is the meat, it is the food, it is the body of your CV. This is where an employer is able to know if you have the skills, if you have the experience, and if you have the capability to deliver on the role or the job that you're applying for. So you want to be very critical about this segment of your CV. Now, I have you on the slide that this is the core of your CV. It is a section where you communicate to your prospective employer the skills and experiences that will translate to value for their organization. Ensure that the experiences included here is relevant to the job you're applying for. Your teaching experience may be unnecessary if you're applying for an engineering role. Prioritize achievement, milestones, and value-focused activities. It should be fact-based, therefore, you should quantify them using figures, percentages, ratios, etc. when necessary. Use only action verbs to describe your achievements and accomplishments. Let it answer the question, what did I do? What did I initiate, create, or complete? How did I do it? And what was the result of my action? So I'll take it bit by bit and show you what that means with a visual representation. I feel like that would also help you to, just know what we're expecting. Now, when we speak about it's been the core of your CV and the section where you communicate to your prospective employer the skills and experiences that will translate to value for them. What we mean is, for example, we have here, so ideally how it should be structured will be the name of the organization you worked, the location of that organization, the timeline of that engagement from June 2018 to present or June 2018 to June 2019. And then the role, some people would put everything in one line. They will put the name of the organization, the location, and then their role, account executive, before including the timeline. Now, you see how this person started. Built relationships with 50 plus clients to understand their needs, resulting in 1 million in annual revenue. Now, this person is someone who has done account management, right? And I would think that their CV, this CV that they've created is also going to be used to apply for maybe like a senior account executive role. Then they need to show the employer that they have the experience of account management. And this is how I can be of value to your organization because I've done it before. Now, the second point, ensure that the experiences included here is relevant to the job you're applying for. Like I said, this person is probably applying for the role of a senior account executive, and their experience of an account executive with resume worded, account manager with second company, account development executive with a third company, and then account specialist with the fourth company communicates their consistency or the relevance of the experience to the role of a senior account executive. It is relevant because they've done this work before. You cannot have this CV if you're applying for the role of, let's say, a product designer, and you're just highlighting the experience of you being an account manager. There is a disconnect. There is a complete disconnect. It has to tally, it has to be tailored, it has to be relevant to the role that you're applying for. Now, prioritize achievements, milestones, value-focused activities, and it should be fact-based. Therefore, you should quantify them using figures, percentages, and ratios. Now, it is one thing to say, I did X, Y, Z. And it's another thing to say, I did 20% of X through ABC initiative, which led to 30% results. Those numbers, what do they help you do? They kind of like help you build credibility to what you're saying. So for example, if you look at this CV, it says here, build relationship with 50 plus clients. As a recruiter, I would say, oh, this person already has some form of experience working with 50 plus clients. Let's say the clients in my in the firm that I work for as a recruiter, we only do say 40 plus clients. This person is an ideal candidate. Let's even say we do 50 or we do 100 plus clients, you know, in my organization, I'll say, okay, this person has experience doing 50 and they are applying for this role. So maybe it's a growth opportunity for them to even do a bit more. They become very relevant to the role. If I want to be very specific, I would say build relationship with 50 plus clients per week. Or I can say month on month, just to quantify it and make it more specific, or try to give it some form of like essence. I could say maybe I'm like interacted with 50 plus clients per week to understand their needs, which resulted in 1 million naira in annual revenue and maybe say 15% retention rates for clients month on month. What does that mean? It is quantifying what I've done. It is showing the value of the of result that I've been able to generate for the organization that I currently work for. And that communicates to your employer the potential you have to do even more or something similar to what you've done in the past. So you don't want to come and start you don't want to just list out responsibilities to your employer. What you want to do is show them that you're a person of value. This is what I've done before, and this is the potential of what I can bring when you employ me. And that is why it is very critical to include some of these things that I'm mentioning right now. The next point in this first CV says exceeded annual target by an average of 20% during tenure, thoroughly prepared for over 60 client meetings, resulting in a close rate of 5% above the average. Are you seeing how this is describing value? I'm saying, oh, wow, this person has done over 60 client meetings and they have been able to close out 5% of the deals, which is above the average they typically face in their organization. So I can now begin to translate how that can make sense for us in our own organization as a recruiter and say, okay, this person can even do about 10% if you bring them on, or they can even do less, or they can even do more than that. We see here the person says, work closely with 60 plus existing clients to uncover potential areas of self. They are not just listing their job responsibilities, they are listing it in a way that communicates their value. Led development of demo strategy for a new product offering targeting large financial institutions, which was used to generate $1.1 million in annual revenue. Are you seeing how they're quantifying the value of their experiences? Increased annual retention rate by 4%. How did they do that? By performing regular check-ins with existing client holders. Now, this is speaking to this final point here around use only action verbs like led, exceeded, built, and let it be communicating what did I do? What did I initiate? What did I create? What did I complete? How did I do it? You see here, increased annual retention by 4%. They're saying what they did. And they're saying how they did it. How did you achieve this annual retention rate of 4%? By performing regular check-ins with existing account holders. That is how they were able to achieve this result. I hope this makes sense. Now let's look at this CV we have here for Guarantee Trust Bank, Lagos, Nigeria. Manage and supervise a team of 15 people. Now, this person is an assistant operations head. And so I actually worked on this particular CV and I just, took a snapshot of it to include on my presentation. This person is an assistant operation, banking operations head, and they're now applying for the role of the operations head itself, which means that they're going to take on a leadership role. And then it is critical to highlight that they have managed a team of 15 people, right? Because it's showing that this person can manage people at this point, ensuring their development and the team's overall success by monitoring and evaluating their performance and providing constructive feedback. Now, in as much as you might also want to list out specific job responsibilities, you have to do it in a way that communicates value. This person from this particular sentence has highlighted that they've led over 15 people in a team and they ensured that the team was successful. How did they do it? They monitored and evaluated their performance and provided constructive feedback to the team members. That is how they achieved success. And that is how this person has led a team. I'm taking my time on this part of this like presentation, because this is the most critical part of your CV, and it's very important that you get it right. So let's go to the next point. Oversee the effective and efficient running of the branch operations, especially as it relates to customer experience by developing Are you seeing how they're saying what they've done? That they developed professional relationships based on trust, empathy, credibility, and ethical conduct. They designed and deployed effective administration of vault management system and access control to match various clients and customer needs, which led to 10% efficiency savings month on month. Coordinate and supervise operational efficiency of all cash centers, e-branches, and implants attached to the branch, reducing downtime by 25% year on year. They reviewed all internal reports and proofs for accuracy to prevent fraud and operational risk for the branch. Acts as a first-level compliance officer, ensuring KYC compliance, anti-monetary laundering detection and prevention, and protection of the bank against unwanted risk and regulatory fines. Now, these are some of the major responsibilities of someone who is an assistant operations head. And they are communicating this in a way that it says, this is what I have done. I can do this thing if you bring me into your organization. So that's just like an idea of what is expected of you when you're including this on you, when you're discussing your professional experience. You don't want to just list out like a bunch of responsibilities. You want to communicate it in a way that when someone picks it up, they'll say, you've done amazing work, and this is what I want you to come and do for me in my organization. I hope this makes sense. Any question on this so far? Do you have?
Yes, I have a question.
Awesome. Let's have your questions. Yeah.
Okay. My question goes to the professional experience. Like, I'm trying to understand, is professional experience the same thing with achievement?
No, it is not. This professional experience just speaks to your work experience. What is the work that you've done? Your achievements can come in the later section of your CV, which is what we're also going to discuss as we move forward. But this is just basically speaking to what you've done, maybe like with previous organizations or like where
Okay.
you've worked or your personal,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
let me understand. Like, because I'm saying work experience, that's what I'm trying to get. Okay, the work experience now is just basically the roles, the responsibility you play in your work experience. Then,
Absolutely.
then when it comes to professional experience, you now detailed everything, like each responsibility, what you did in that particular responsibility.
So what I mean, so it can either be called professional or work experience. They are both the same thing. But what I'm highlighting is just the fact that um, um, so many times we see people just list out a list of all the things they've done in that role without communicating any form of value and saying, this is what I've done in a way that like tells a story to your prospective employer that you're a person of value, right? This is what I was trying to highlight. It's not like it's different. It's the same thing we're talking about, but then I'm saying there's a better way to communicate your previous experiences such that it sets you on a path of, it just differentiates you in some form or in some way. I
Okay.
don't know if that clarifies the
Yes,
confusion.
sir. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Who's the next person
Okay,
that has a question?
good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please, I'd like to find out, first of all, is as an entry level applicant, I gave some professionals my CV to help me put together. It came out nice, but then I still get rejection mail. It's not like they didn't even. It's not like I wrote an assessment or I did an interview and failed. It's just my CV and my application, and it still comes back as they're not going to move further with my application. Is there something that I'm missing?
Okay, so first of all, your CV is not the only tool that you use in applying for a job. Now, before a job is created, there are some certain like elements or metrics that they might have set for the organization in terms of what they're looking out for. These metrics could include some things like age. Some organizations can be biased and say, oh, if you do not finish from this like top universities, we don't employ you. If you're above a certain age, we don't employ you. If maybe um, you do not have maybe like up to 6 to 7 years work experience, we will not employ you. There's so many things that can impact an application decision. It's not just your CV. You can have an amazing CV. It might also be that maybe you do not have the relevant experience that is needed for that particular role, or they want someone who is more experienced. It could be that maybe there are some other elements that they've considered, maybe like um, your cover letter, for example, is not compelling enough. It can also just be that there's a lot of competition, and there were people who maybe had better CVs or people who had better experience that had also applied for that role. There's no one way to know what is, the reason for that. You just need to ensure that everything on your part, you've done it right. Right. If you have
Yeah,
if you have a
yeah.
CV, your CV should be very critical. It should be very good. If you have a cover letter, it should be very sound as well.
Sorry, I did go through the requirements, and I had everything that was required. The age range, I'm there. The qualification, the competence, core competence, I'm there. So like I met the requirements, like all the requirements were ticked. So I don't know how come I still got the rejection mail. It's just something that I'm missing. So also there's
So
something like
something else,
ALT or APS.
ATS. So there's something called the ATS system. It's called the applicant tracking system, where maybe your CV is being reviewed by an AI tool. You also want to ensure that your CV is ATS like resilience. And I feel like if you do everything that we're discussing here, these are um, some very critical elements of a CV that I've done over for people, and I've taken it to an ATS system, and they all come out very successful. But in terms of in specific response to your question, I think I do not have the answers because I'm not on that recruitment team to be able to tell you specifically what went wrong. But what you can do is maybe you can send them an email demanding specific reasons why your application was rejected, that you really want to know why, because you cannot exactly know until they tell you. It might just be something that is not even within your control. If it's someone who is humane that is handling the entire recruitment process, they should be able to respond to you. Ideally, that's what is expected of every recruiter when you're sending out a rejection. You should give the person specific reasons why their application was rejected, especially if it's a very small application pool. But many times, most HRs in Nigeria don't have the time to give tailored and specific or personal feedback. What you can do is to request it, but there's nothing I can critically tell you from here because I'm not on that recruitment team to know what went wrong. But like I'm saying, you can have a really good CV and still get a rejection. It might not just be that it's the CV that's the problem. It might just be a host of other small things that might happen around the entire application process that might not have fallen in your favor. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I do.
And I hope
All
that
right.
has been helpful. So just send them
Yeah.
an email demanding specific reasons why your application was declined.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So I believe that this has been largely understood. So I'm just going to skim through the remaining the elements of your CV. So now, for the person who was asking around achievement and accomplishment, you can also have a section of your CV where you're discussing your certifications, awards, and accomplishment. Here, you can showcase a list of relevant certifications you have attained over the course of your career, such as Net Factory Design School certification, any certification you have from like from Udemy, from Udacity, from Coursera. And I want to encourage you to take courses relating to your field of interest to boost your CV appeal. Now you can have so if you look on the right side, there's a visual representation where you see a segment of the CV that says award, honors, achievements, accomplishments, right? You can put it certifications as well. You can have it, you can put it all together, awards, honors, achievements. If there are a lot, you can separate it, trainings and certifications separate from awards, honors, and achievements, right? The whole essence of this is to sell yourself as the ideal candidate to the employer. You can also include a list of relevant awards, accomplishments, or recognitions you have received over the course of your career. In this section, e.g., awards for exceptional leadership, most innovative, and things like this. Don't fake it till you make it, because sometimes you might put something in your CV that a recruiter might want to press more for. You don't want to say something that you haven't achieved. You need to say something that you're able to defend. There's a way you can say something small and make it look like a big thing. That's different from completely lying or actually lying on your CV. So this is also an element or a part of your CV that you can include to boost your CV appeal. Another segment of your section of your CV is your skills. Now, there are conversations around taking out interest completely from your CV. Now, this I'm going to say is totally up to you. Some people now say there's no need to put an interest on your CV because everything that you have said on your CV should be able to communicate your interest to your employer. But some people are indifferent. So I'm just, like letting you know what are the current trends in terms of like CV writings, because I follow it, very vividly. And these are the kind of conversations that are happening now. People say, oh, it used to be important to put your interests on your CV, but now it's not relevant anymore. You can decide to do without it. So it's totally up to you to do without your interest. But the skills segment or the skills section is still very important to have that on your CV. Now, in terms of your skills, list relevant skills you have built over time. This could be technical skills like proficiency in MS Office Suite. Now, you see that this MS Office Suite is cancelled because right now employers don't see, like MS Office Suite as a skill anymore, because ideally you should be able to use it. We are in the digital age. You should be able to use PowerPoint, Excel, and Word documents, but you can still put it on your CV if you like, right? Now, you have like technical skills like coding, UI, UX, Adobe Illustrator, etc. Soft skills like communication, teamwork, and leadership. Languages now is not relevant. Like I said, including language in this section of your CV is optional. Right, it's optional to include your language proficiency in this segment of your CV. However, it can become mandatory if it's a requirement for the job or you have proficiency in more than one international language. So for example, if you're applying for the role of a customer service personnel and it is important that you can speak French or Spanish or like one international language, it is very critical that you include that on your CV. But if it's not, a requirement for the job, you don't have to include a language proficiency on your CV. As the case may be. Include relevant interests you may have now or later in the future. Like I said, the including interest now on your CV is largely optional. Some recruiters are not having a conversation about it not being relevant anymore on your CV. So it's up to you to include it or do away with it. And then we move on to another segment of your CV, which includes your leadership experience or passion projects. Now, I say this because this is a very interesting thing to put on your CV, and you can see it is optional. It is not a requirement. The other ones I've been speaking about, I have not included anything like about it being optional, but these particular segments are optional depending on what you have done and if what you have done is relevant or it communicates or shows you as a person of value. So if you have a leadership experience as an entry-level person, it can also communicate that you have like leadership abilities, and it might just be the difference between candidate A and candidate B. If I say, oh, these people have very similar experience, very similar educational background, but this person has more leadership experience than the other person, and that might be the deciding factor to choose candidate A over candidate B. So if you have interesting leadership experiences of passion projects, you can include it on your CV. Now, I said here, include relevant leadership experiences you have to show ownership, responsibility, and reliability. That's what it communicates. Same rules applies as in work experience in terms of highlighting and quantifying achievements. This section of your CV is optional. So if you send an example here, the Student Personal Development Hub was a passion project I started 5 years ago. It communicates me as someone who has shown ownership. I can take ownership for something. I can take responsibility for something. I can also be reliable to see things through. So I was able to put that on my CV as a way to differentiate me from every other person who is applying, because it might just be the differentiator. This passion project or leadership experience might just be the thing that differentiates you from another person. So what I did was that I explained what it is, that the Student Personal Development Hub is an online career center for students across universities in Nigeria to help students adopt the mindset of personal development and prepare for the future of work. And I listed a couple of things I've done, in that regard. So this was in my CV when I was applying for entry-level jobs. But right now, I still include it because it's also part of like something I do. But if as you go forward, it's no longer relevant, you can take it off your CV. Volunteering is also an optional segment of your CV. It's not important, it's not critical that you put it, but it can also be a differentiating factor between candidate A and candidate B. Some uh, um, like organizations can say, oh, we are very particular about volunteering, or we want people who can do things beyond financial gain. And then they come on your CV and they're seeing that you volunteer a lot. It might just be the reason why they're selecting you over another candidate. So if you have volunteering experience, include the relevant volunteering experience to communicate to your employer that you can commit to something beyond financial gain. Why is this section important? It speaks to your personal values, and it can stand you out in an interview because you have stories to tell. You can go into details as in work and leadership experiences, or you can keep it simple, like the example that I've just highlighted on the right side of this slide. This section of the CV is also very optional. So that's pretty much it about the elements or the anatomy of a winning CV. Now let's go into the tips of creating a winning CV. These are things that you should have seen over the course of this presentation. Excellence is often underrated when building your CV. See, you should take your CV like it's the most important thing it's the most important tool that you need in your job hunt journey. It has to be excellent. It has to exude excellence in every form and shape, from the formatting to the look and feel of it, to the use of words and to everything. Excellence should exude from your CV. Do not lie on your CV, but you can get creative. An example of this thing that I just mentioned now is the images you have beneath. Someone asked on Twitter, how would you write, I changed a light bulb on your resume? And someone responded, single-handedly managed the successful upgrade and deployment of new environmental illumination system with zero cost overturns and zero safety incidents. So you can get creative and make something very minute seem like a very serious thing, right? Another example of that is, how do you say I worked the drive-through at McDonald's? And someone said, I was an associate at a multinational firm in the service industry with revenue over 20 billion, served as a liaison to the automotive industry. So these are ways you can get creative with, very minute things you've done in your job experiences. Now, another thing I also want to mention is that do not underestimate any experience that you have. While we're speaking about it being relevant, if you do not have so much work experience, you can turn an irrelevant experience to become relevant by virtue of how you present it on your CV. Get a second and even a third eye review of your CV. You saw what we discussed around the fact that errors and mistakes can put a recruiter off, and that might just be the reason why you are not called for an interview. So you want to ensure that your CV is completely error-free. Get it to a friend, a family member to give a second and third eye review of it. Read your CV out loud. Sometimes you might not see a mistake until you read it out loud. And when you're reading it, you'll not be like, okay, this doesn't sound right. And then you tweak it a bit. That can be a way for you to figure out some grammatical issues with your CV. Read your CV out loud. Review your CV regularly. Take out the old. If you're gaining new experiences, you don't want to continue dragging your old experiences from like university on your CV. Leave the old ones to go. As new ones are coming in, create space for them. Take out the old ones and let the new ones shine through. And then finally, do not include references on your CV. Why? If a HR person or recruiter wants to get reference from you, they don't need it on your CV. If you're going to get a job and references is an important part of your recruitment, they would reach out to you after your interview and say, can you provide us a reference? You don't need to include it in your CV. You see some people including the names of their lecturer, including the names of their grandfather on their CV. Please do not do that. It is not best practice. Nobody includes references on their CVs anymore, just like they're now speaking about interest not being an important part of your CV anymore. the CV writing like journey is evolving. As we're going, we're seeing new things, and that's why it's also very good to refresh your like understanding of like what you need to have or not have in your CV. On the right, on the left side of this deck, you can see the do's and don'ts, top resume mistakes, spelling and grammar errors, missing email and phone number information, using passive language instead of action words, not well organized, concise, and easy to skim, your CV being too long. In terms of your resume language, be specific, be specific rather than general, active rather than passive, right to express, not impress, articulate rather than flowery, fact-based, quantify and qualify, written for people who can scan quickly. The do's, be consistent in formatting and content, make it easy to read and follow, balancing white spaces. By balancing white spaces, it means let your CV don't look jam-packed in the eye, create, like use bullet points when you have to use bullet point, create spaces, don't let it be too jam-packed, let there be wide spaces on your CV. It makes it look more presentable. Use consistent spacing, underlining, italics, bold, and capitalization for emphasis. So if you're capitalizing work experience, you should also capitalize education. You should also capitalize, I'm sure you must have seen it across like the examples I've also shown you. It says that you should list headings such as experience in order of importance. Within headings, list information in reverse chronological order. We have mentioned this most recent first. These tips are from Harvard as well, so it's very important that you include them to your CV. Avoid information gaps such as a missing summa. Be sure that your formatting is translated properly if converting to a PDF. Also very important, it is best that once you're done with your CV, you should convert it into a PDF file. It's very strange to receive CVs in Word document, except your recruiter demands for your CV in Word documents. Always send a PDF version of your CV, because if you send it in Word, depending on the system or device that it's opened in, it can scatter. And you don't want a situation where they say, what's this? And they just dump your CV. Always send it in PDF, because in that way, no matter the device it's open in, it's going to look the same way. You don't use personal pronouns on your CV, such as I. Do not abbreviate on your CV. Use a narrative style, number or letter categorization. Do not use slangs or colloquialisms. Do not include a picture. Do not include age or sex. Do not list your references. You see that again, don't list your references. Start each line with a date. These are the don'ts of creating a good CV for yourself. Now let's look at some examples of very bad CVs. Can I get one person to tell me why these CVs are bad based on everything that we've discussed? Any volunteers, please?
Hi.
Hi. Who's speaking?
Okay, let me start with the first one. The first one is the address, the phone number, the alignment. Then coming to the education, the alignment, also the dates, and where you listed English A and other thing. Then coming to work experience, the alignment, how you listed, okay, the date. Then after the date, you write the position. After the position, the name of the company, then and the reference. That's what I can see.
Absolutely. Well done. Well done. So can we have someone else pick another
So
CV?
the first CV, the work experience is not detailed. The person did not specify what exactly he did in the company.
Absolutely. Well done.
Yeah,
Please go
and
ahead.
I think that's also similar with the second one. Just put the name of the company and the year. And
nobody's saying something around the email and the fact that they're using curriculum vitae on their CV.
In the last one, especially. And then they're outdated, like Hotmail. I'm not sure if people still use Hotmail.
Very good, very good. And they're including their nationality and marital status, gender, which can cause biases. Their age cause biases. 1985. What are you looking for a job for? Should be the old people's home. Okay, yeah, so that's very good, very good. Let's move then to Okay, do you have someone else who's going to say something?
Yes, I want to say something.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The last CV,
Mm-hmm.
the fonts, the last CV, the
Mm-hmm.
fonts is not quite good. The
Mm-hmm.
arrangements, the name is not good.
Mm-hmm.
The color of the achievements and education and listing of those English A and things like that.
Mm. Absolutely. Well done. Well done, guys. I'm really excited that we're all following. Hi. Hi.
Yeah,
Please
I
go ahead.
think from what everybody has said, I think hobbies should be a personal thing, not a professional one.
How do you mean? Can you explain that?
I think your hobbies should be personal to you if it's not related to
Mm-hmm.
the work.
Okay,
And if
okay,
it's not
okay,
related to
okay.
the work,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, guys. I'm really glad that we're all following. Let's look at some examples of a good CV, and hopefully that would also can we have people just speak to like why these CVs are good or why we consider them good examples of a good CV?
Good. Huh?
Hi, good afternoon. Please go ahead.
So this particular CV now is detailed,
Mm-hmm.
like the from the name, the education, and the alignment. The
Very good.
the
Mm-hmm.
topic, you could see everything coming out very well. So this
Mm-hmm.
one is a CV, unlike the first one
Absolutely.
wasn't straight.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Are there any specific things you're seeing as well that you want to highlight?
Yeah, the person was for the first one. It was
Mm-hmm.
detailing in for the under the professional experience. You can see some
Mm-hmm.
details like it shows the credibility of the person and
Mm-hmm.
the organization can share it with the person more.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Well
we have
done.
the LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
something as
They have professional email. They included their country code. As you can see, there's nobody like so if you look at the difference between the previous one, like most of the people on the other one, they did not even have their country code. It was just the phone number directly. But if you look at the other one, we're seeing their country code included in the CV. We're seeing that they have very professional email. They included their LinkedIn URL. For the one that had like a summary, we're seeing how detailed it is, very short and concise. We see how they use numbers to quantify their experiences. We see how the formatting looks. We see the chronological order. 2023 comes before 2019. We're seeing that the education was just their mass. See, even this person did not even include their BSc. It was just the Masters of Science, Public Health. And some people will have their primary certification. I'm like, why are you putting your primary school? Nobody knows, like, at primary school, nobody will employ you with your primary school certificate. It is
The
mostly
white
going to
space are
be,
balanced.
you said?
The white space are balanced, very clear.
Exactly, white spaces. So all of this, I hope that you have been able to see some of the things that we've discussed on these CVs as we're showing them. These are further examples. These are CVs I've also worked on myself, like some of my clients and stuff like that. And you can see how all of these things are very aligned. Lagos, Nigeria, we have their LinkedIn URL for the ones who has that. Professional summary, very detailed. We have specialized, their skills are very clearly outlined in terms of their work experience. You see that the white spaces are balanced, very clearly articulated in terms of their achievements and stuff like that. I hope this has been really insightful for everyone so far. Before we move into the cover letter or email, do we have any questions so far? We're actually short for time. I think I'll just speed through that and I'll take all the questions at the end. So let's look at what a cover letter or cover email is. A cover letter is also known as an application letter. It is a 3 to 4 paragraph memo to employers explaining your interest in the job, the company, and your fitness for the role. It is typically submitted alongside your CV in a job application. Now, not every application requires you to submit a cover letter, but it's better to know what a cover letter is in case you're required to submit a cover letter. A cover email or a cover mail, right, is just a cover letter, but formatted into an email. A cover mail was coined to take the place of what traditionally would be a cover letter. It is a brief yet effective electronic tool designed to convey your interest in a company and or a position. Now, a cover letter is a document, but a cover mail is maybe like when you're sending your application via email. It's not advisable to just send your CV to a recruiter just like that, just send only your CV to them. It is very important that you include a cover email, a mail that goes alongside the CV. And we're going to see examples of that. Now, what are important points to note with reference to a cover letter and a cover email? Personalization is key to writing a compelling cover letter or email. You don't need to, I mean, there are a lot of AI tools now that can help you write a cover letter, but many of these AI tools do not help you with personalization, right? It is very important that you personalize the cover letter. Let the recruiter feel like you're speaking to them directly. The expectation is to have unique cover letters or emails for every job. You can't expect to use one cover letter or cover mail for every job application you're making. It has to be tailored, it has to be specific and personalized. A good way to create a response producing cover letter is to highlight your skills or experiences that are most applicable to the job or industry and to tailor the letter to the specific organization you're applying to. While your cover letters while cover letters are not always required, many hiring managers still rely on them to gauge an applicant's skills, experience, and background. Please do not regurgitate your CV. Now, I see this a lot. A lot of people just go to their CVs and they regurgitate what's on their CV and on their cover letter. A cover letter is supposed to communicate to your employer that beyond your skills, why do you want to work for them? Why their organization? Why not another organization? You need to be very personable in putting out a compelling or a response producing cover letter. You know, another important point to note is that your cover letter can form part of the recruitment considerations, as some hiring managers use it to assess your writing skills. They want to see how you can write. Can you write a formal letter? They want to also look at that and say, okay, fine, this person knows how to write and this one does not know how to write. Now, these are some of the important points to note about CVs. Now, something interesting, this very interesting picture I have on this deck is that your cover letters are recommendations written by oneself about oneself. You're like recommending yourself to the organization. You're using your hand to write a recommendation about yourself to the organization that you're applying for. So it is very important that you make it as personable as possible. Don't just regurgitate what you have in your CV. Why do you want to work for this organization? Why are you passionate about this particular role in product design? What is it about product design that keeps you up at night? Why are you interested? What is your motivation? Do you get, why do you want this job so bad? These are some of the things that should exude from your cover letter. What are the elements of a cover letter or a cover email? Forgive me. What are the elements of a cover letter or a cover email? So on the left side of this slide, we have an example of what a cover letter should look like. It's a formal letter. There are, better examples online, as you can see. There are better examples of the formatting of a cover letter, but ideally, this is what at the elements of it. What are the considerations, the various parts of it? So for a cover letter, you should use your complete title and address. Address it to a particular person, if possible, and remember to use a colon. Now, some people will just say, dear sir or ma. Remember that we're talking about personalization here. Your cover letter has to be personalized to suit your prospective employer. So if you know the name of the hiring manager included, if you don't know the name of the hiring manager, just say, dear hiring manager, open the paragraph, clearly state what you're writing, the name and the position or type of work you're exploring, where applicable, how you heard about the position. Mid-paragraph, explain why you're interested in this employer and your reasons for desiring this type of work if you haven't had relevant school or work experience. Closing paragraph, reiterate your interest in the position and enthusiasm for using your skills to contribute to the work of the organization. Now, for a cover email, if you're sending your application via an email, include a strong subject line, software engineer seeks software development, make it very strong. Include a personal greeting, dear Alice. If you don't know the name of the person, you should know the name of the person from the email. If you have their email, you should know the name of the person. But if you don't know the name of the person, you can use dear hiring manager, right? To to the point, first sentence, state why you're sending them. The email is ideally shorter than the cover letter itself. So try to keep it very concise. So we have the first point, state why you send that email. Then you have a relevant main paragraph discussing why you're the best fit for that role, a clear call to action. Always include a call to action even in your cover letter as well, because you want to give them a reason to want to reach out. So you can say things like, can we schedule a meeting to discuss, my insight or my fit for the role even further? Then have a formal sign off, your name, sincerely, your name. You can include your LinkedIn URL at this point if you're sending, and attach your CV. Don't forget to attach your CV. Some people used to forget to attach their CV when they're sending an application via email. Please do not forget. And then that's it about the elements of your cover letter. And then we're going to move to tips to writing a winning cover letter. Address your letter to a specific person if you can. Tailor your letters to specific situations or organizations by doing your research before writing your letters. Keep your letters concise and factual, no more than a single page. Avoid flowery language. Oh, it's from the great bosom of my heart that I write this letter of application. Don't use flowery language. Go straight to the point. Give examples that support your skills and qualifications. Put yourself in the reader's shoes. Ask yourself, what can you write that will convince this reader that you are ready and able to do the job? Don't overuse the pronoun I. Remember that this is a marketing tool. Use lots of action words. Have a second and third proofread of your letter. If converting to a PDF, check that your formatting translated correctly. Reference skills or experiences from the job description and draw connections to your credentials. And finally, make sure your resume and cover letter are prepared with the same font type and size. On the left side of this deck, you see this image where they said tip for a great cover letter. She says go beyond the resume, write a custom cover letter, personalization again. Try to find a contact person, be yourself while remaining polite and professional. Edit and proof your letter carefully. Now, this is an example of a cover letter that we see. Dear hiring manager. So you see, dear hiring manager's name. So if you know the person's name, that's fine. If you don't know the person's name, you can just see dear hiring manager. I would like to communicate my sincere interest in you write the position posting with the company's name that I found on how did you hear about the position. While reviewing your company's website, I noticed that your firm is and blah blah blah. So the person is, are you seeing how it is being personalized? They've gone to the website, they've said things about the company. You're making it very personable to that company. I'm particularly interested in working with you in specific area or department because I also find what you find interesting or inspiring about the company to be the most important factor in marketing and business. Then you don't speak about yourself after you are done boboing the employer. You cannot speak about yourself. Oh, my keen skills have demonstrated blah blah blah. Just highlight everything that you can do for them. I've acquired an understanding of concept or responsibilities, blah, 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 blah. And then finally, you can just close with a call to action. I believe I am prepared to handle the exciting challenges that this position presents. And I hope you allow me to further discuss my qualification with you over an interview. Now, this is a call to action. Always include a call to action in your cover letter. See how the person is saying, invite me for an interview. That's a call to action from the side of the employer. I have attached a copy of my resume to this application for your review. Please let me know if you require additional information. Thank you for your time and consideration. Regards, their name. Okay, so that's it's about an example. You can see here why this one is a bad cover letter. We're seeing that it's not aligned. The address is on this other side, which it should not be. The alignment is off. On the right side, you can see how this person has already included the date, the address. Dear Mrs. Carey. Person knows the name. But if you don't know the name of the person, that's fine. You can just say, dear hiring manager, I'm writing to apply for your position in wine wholesales as advertised on whatever platform. This exciting opportunity appears to be a wonderful fit for my professional experience, personal interests, and career goals. I'm returning to Boston to commit, blah, blah, blah. So you just, are you seeing how personable it is? This person knows you're not regurgitating your CV, you're just communicating why you are the best person for the job. Having spent the year working and traveling, I'm eager to incorporate myself once again to the local wine community, blah, blah, blah. Through 8 years in the restaurant field, I have acquired a deep love for appreciation for wine and cuisine. So they are expressing their motivation. See the why, and she said here, this is why she loves or she appreciates wine and cuisine. You know, she has 8 years experience in the field and have acquired a deep love and appreciation for wine and cuisine. I've been known to wax rap whatever English you're speaking there, and she went on and on about how she's the best person. So it's a marketing document. Sell yourself as much as you can. And with that, we'll wrap up this conversation. And I hope this has been very helpful for everyone here. So if you have any questions, oh my God.
Yes, sir.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
I thought you guys lost. I thought you lost me for a second.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful
Sorry, 1
session
second.
with you.
So please, while we're asking questions, I'm going to display. Sorry. Okay. So while you're asking questions, I'm going to display a poll. Just use the poll to fill in your details because we're going to be having other sessions as well, so we can reach out to you and send you invite for our session. So ask the questions.
I have a question, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, there's this talk about maybe for somebody that has been in a job and after a while was out of a job. So employers usually ask you why there was a break in your work experience or something. So for somebody who is in that situation, for example, you've not worked for like a year, maybe because you used that 1 year in personal development or in learning a skill, for example, a soft skill or something. So how would you communicate that in your CV?
How would you communicate that in your CV? That's a very interesting question. Thank you. So ideally, how we describe that in their career space would be a career break, right? There was a career break. So you can include it. Well, I don't think, okay, this is my own perspective. I don't think it is important to include it in your CV, but you can include it on your LinkedIn profile because I see that people do that a lot on their CV profile. They just put career break and they explain the reason for that career break on their LinkedIn profile. So you can include it on your CV on your LinkedIn profile, and then just send your CV with the most recent experience if you had. The recruiter might be curious. If you have the experience that they need, right, and maybe there's a career gap in your CV, it will definitely come up in your interview. So I think that is the point where you then have to defend yourself as per like why there was that career gap on your CV. I don't think you will be completely disqualified by virtue of a career gap. What I think would happen is they would be curious enough to ask you during the interview if you're a candidate of interest, why there was a gap in your career. So at that point, you can then explain, oh, at this time of my career, I decided to take a career break where I took X, Y, and Z on. I did this personal development course just as a way, to recuperate and reevaluate my interest and what I want to do long term. And now that you have done that, you're very excited about joining the organization because you know it is what you want to do. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Any other question? Comments?
Okay,
good afternoon.
Okay, sir. Please, I'm going to ask if we could get the document for this webinar.
So I believe that Nest Factory had a recording of this session, so I'm sure they're going to provide it to you. This is largely an intellectual property document, and I'm unfortunately I'm unable to share it with you. But if you can go back to the recording, yeah, that would be also helpful.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, please fill the poll. If you see the poll has a space for your email, If we have your email, we will be able to mail you the link so you can have access to the recording. So please just take the poll for that particular reason.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Hi.
Okay, I'm Azizat. I was going to ask, you made mention of if it's an entry level and probably the skill or the job you're trying to apply for doesn't have anything to do with your education, but like something like all these skills, UI, UX design and business analysis and the likes. Okay, so how do you chip that in as like I met you halfway where you were trying to like explain how you can like put in for like that kind of role that doesn't have to do with your educational line.
Yeah. So the main thing is just to highlight what is the most relevant experiences that you have, right? So if your education is off tangent from what you're pursuing, it is okay to de-emphasize it on your CV by putting it towards the tail end of your CV, right? You want to highlight or you want to start off with things like maybe like a professional summary. You want to include your work experience, have a section around trainings and certifications where you're highlighting all the trainings you've done around that interest that you're pursuing now. And then maybe towards the tail end of your CV, you can then include your education, right? But what that has done is from the start of your CV, it has communicated what your interest is from the get-go, from your professional experience to the work experience to the trainings and certifications you've obtained, has already communicated to your prospective employer what you want to do long term. That your education is just, it's okay to know that you have a formal education, but this is where your career is tending towards now. Right. So if you have all of the trainings, certifications, you have the work experience, it's okay to include that on your CV. And then de-emphasize your education by putting it towards the tail end. I hope that helps.
Okay, yeah. So those certifications will not be attached to your educational experience, right?
No, because you did not obtain a degree. You only did you only did a training and certification. So you can have a segment of your CV that says trainings and certification. You cannot include it under education or qualification because it's not an education qualification. It's just a training certificate.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Miriam, you have your hands up. We have less than 5 minutes to wrap up questions. So please.
I have a question.
All right, sir. Who's talking? Good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much for the question.
You're welcome.
All right. My question is on cover email and cover letter. So there are some job applications that they don't state the name of the company and the job description. They just put the position, probably the pay and requirements like a BSc is also something like that. How do you write the cover letter for something like that?
So ideally, this kind of job would typically want you to send an application via an email, right? But if you want to write a cover letter, I think if you don't know the name of the company, it is going to be very difficult. I'm not going to lie, but I mean, there's a way you can do it. You can just speak to your experiences. So if you know the job title is for the role of an account executive, for example, you can just include, oh, I'm applying for the role of XYZ, which was advertised on XYZ platform. Because you don't know the name of the organization, you cannot be specific like that. And ideally, most time when I've seen job applications like that, they usually would just require you to send your CV via email. So the most relevant thing will be a cover mail. So you can just say, oh, that you saw the application for the role, or you're applying for the role of this, why. You might not mention the name of the company. You can just go ahead and say, oh, you are XYZ person with so and so experience and you're applying for this particular role. You believe that it's going to be very generic because you do not have details of the organization. But if you can, please find the information about the organization. But if you cannot, please go ahead and still send the cover mail, but from a generic perspective.
Okay. Sorry, one more question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Assuming, let's say I have a contract job now that is expiring next month. Then I probably apply for another job, and the recruiter asks me that why am I leaving my current job? What do I tell them?
There's a lot of ways to answer that question. This is now out of CV and cover letter writing. So you can say things like, "Oh, you're seeking something." So you said it's a contract job, so you can say that I'm looking for something more permanent, or you can say something like, "I'm seeking to explore an opportunity that will challenge me beyond my current role is doing," and you believe that this job you're applying for would give you that opportunity. It could also be that you're maybe even in a different career field. You can say you're exploring career opportunities in a different space, or like haven't done a personal career reflection. You realize that it's okay for you to that you're seeking an opportunity to explore something else, or you're seeking an opportunity to be like better challenged, and that's why you're putting in for this role. The whole point of it is to not badmouth your previous employer, because that will speak bad of you overall. Just say why you want to move, and there are a lot of reasons why people leave organizations. So yeah.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Question, sir, please.
Yes, please go
Yeah,
ahead.
so no, it's actually a lot of CV writing. I just want you to explain brief about code emailing and stuff, like even sending application emails to companies that maybe you feel like maybe they not put out adverts, just writing randomly and sending code emails. Can you just explicate on that a bit?
Yeah, so cold emails are basically just you have an organization that you admire and you want to get into the organization. It is okay to, find if you can find an email for somebody within the organization, or if you can research and figure out the structure of the email of the organization, then you can couch emails for people who are at top executive level. When you're sending out code emails, you need to send it to people at the top executive level, people with decision-making capabilities in that organization. If you send it to someone who is at the lower level of the organization, they might not be able to effect to action on your application. So you want to send it to someone, senior executive directors or people above who have the ability to make decisions on hiring, and those people can then decide on bringing you on board. But the materials with which you're applying or sending those code emails needs to be solid from the CV that you're sending out to the cover email. It has to communicate that you're a person of value. One way to catch their attention is to find a problem that organization is currently facing and highlight it, and then state how you would typically approach that problem for them. And that way you get their attention. Focus on senior executive in that organization who have the capability to make hiring decisions. And I believe that would help.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
We're out of time now, unfortunately. Okay, just can I take like
okay.
2 more questions very quickly?
All right.